You just kind of think that your suffering is insurmountable and all-encompassing because you just don't really have like a world that's like ever really outside of yourself. Like human people, they're not rational actors. They don't really make decisions based on what should we do. It's quite frustrating. But yeah, there are like more than enough resources overall, like in the map to like kill basically all of the zombies.
Sam!
My idea is essentially an exploration of sort of automatic movement and verbalization as it relates to autistic spectrum disorder, because that is a symptom of my specific form of autism, that I often inadvertently verbalize my thoughts and move without telling myself to do so. He was possibly Japan's greatest author, a bodybuilder, a closeted bisexual, and a hyper-nationalistic weirdo. Mishima was a uniquely inwardly destructive individual. I often just kind of like flip back and forth between like being like an asexual and a sort of extremely deactivated bisexual or something like that, I mean, unless you're just someone who's like really impressed by just the presence of overt sex and sexuality in a narrative, you're not going to be drawn in by this. I think it's very adolescent for a grown man to be so impressed by something that's so mundane. The problem is that people are thinking about them as lesbians rather than like understanding that in this movie sexuality doesn't really exist in the conventional sense that it does in our world. It's more of a metaphor for things like mediated relationships and not being able to interact directly with the real world.
Sam!
Actually look like a kind of moving, writhing abstract, and it really captures my thought process when I'm in my zone, as it were. It's very mobile, it's very tactile, it's not in any way static, but at the same time it's kind of formless and dark. Like any kind of expression of violence is sort of gauche and inappropriate, unless like it's like Nazis and fascists, because that's like something that's like in itself like an expression of desire to do violence. So any violence that's done preemptively is sort of debatably okay. Just to blame everything, all the shitty about the world, on a single inexorable force that none of us have any kind of control over, just the vague, nebulous concept of bad vibes. And you know that like eventually you are going to like outlive your usefulness, and he is gonna fucking fillet you and mount you on his fucking wall. The people who support it don't really usually look into how effective we actually are at it. And ordinary citizens often massively overestimate their own effectiveness with a firearm.
Sam!
I have this issue when I'm off in my place where I'm not conscious of myself, my zone where I start speaking and moving without realizing it, where I'm loud enough for everyone in the house to hear me, and someone needs to snap me out of it then, because it's a bad learned behavior to have, because then I'll start looking insane in front of my peers. Usually it has to be something sharp, like sometimes I'll even get like a Sam from my mom, and that has to break me out of it, but I only get these brief moments of respite before I start doing it again. People who are very sweet and very nice, but like mostly because they know they can get something out of the people that they're around. The only criteria for whether or not I like something is whether or not I think it's good. Like, I don't try to be objective in any way whatsoever. I don't really see the point. Yeah, the pale king is don't let the Don't let the exciting title fool you. This is very much a intentionally, crushingly mundane story for the most part. I think it's kind of unfair to dog Jordan Peele with the kind of Hitchcock comparisons when he's only 2 films out of the gate. It sets an unrealistic expectation for his work and puts him under more pressure than a relatively young director's ready for. But also we forget that he's 2 movies in, and it took quite a while for Hitchcock to become Hitchcock. Hitchcock had a lot of mediocrity. Hitchcock had to, take time to become Hitchcock. And I resent the assertion that I don't get it. There's really just not that much to get. That I'm not always very good at, pretending that I care about what other people are saying. And so it's like what does it even mean? Because it's just I get the kind of rational process behind it. The character's name is Deacon Frost, so you're going to want your action movie one-liner to be relevant to the fact that he's a thing which is cold. But how ice skating uphill? I think that the insinuation is that some people find that things are difficult and perhaps not worth it, but they do it anyway. It's intriguingly philosophical in a sense, but it doesn't really work in the context of the feature.
Sam!
Because I can go to a bit of a dark place. I don't even want to say dark, because dark place of the mind kind of sounds like I'm getting suicidal or something, but it's not. It's when the trains of thought start to coalesce into a really, really messy way where thoughts start overlapping over each other if I let them go on for too long, and they begin to drown each other out, and I kind of get drowned in a sea of my own consciousness, like John Malkovich in Being John Malkovich, if you've ever seen that movie. And it's quite an unpleasant feeling. I don't like it when all the voices start to run together. You just kind of think that your suffering is insurmountable and all-encompassing because you just don't really have a world that's ever really outside of yourself. But I often just kind of flip back and forth between being an asexual and a sort of extremely deactivated bisexual stuff just to blame everything, all the shitty about the world on a single inexorable force that none of us have any kind of control over, just the vague, nebulous concept of bad vibes. He was possibly Japan's greatest author, a bodybuilder, a cosmic bisexual, and a hyper-nationalistic weirdo. He was Mishima was a uniquely, inwardly destructive individual. And I resent the assumption that I don't get it. There's really just not that much to get. People who overestimate their own effectiveness really usually look into how effective we actually are.
Always very good at
I think it's kind of unfair to care about Jordan Peele, the kind of Hitchcock comparisons when he's only 2 films out of the gate. It sets an unrealistic expectation for his work and puts him under more pressure than a relatively young somebody who, he's 2 movies in, and it took quite a while for Hitchcock to become Hitchcock. Made mediocrity. Hitchcock had to, take time to become Hitchcock. Difficult and perhaps not worth it, but they do it anyway. It's the Pale King is don't let the exciting title fool you. This is very much a intentionally, crushingly mundane story for the most part.
Sam!